Welcome to Why We're Fans. I'm Duran, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Gennaro.
In all of our episodes, we cover the past, present, and the future of all your favorite NFL football teams.
We love hearing your stories, talking the NFL draft, and reminiscing about the good old days.
If you like the same, be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. And leave a comment below if you want to answer any of our questions.
Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on our latest interviews. And like we always say, win or lose, we're all fans. Enjoy this episode.
And welcome back to another episode of Why We're Fans. It's Gennaro and Duran, your hosts as always. Duran, how's it going today?
Good, man. We're back at it. Got a Niners fan on. We're trying to knock out these 32 teams, but sometimes we can't help but to just keep talking about, some of our favorite teams.
Yeah, took a little bit of a hiatus there, which is fine. Getting a little bit of shit together, but it's all good. But today, we're bringing on actually someone that kept me sane during the draft, kept me out of, from jumping off the bridge with the whole Mac Jones shit. We got, Nathan Nelson. Nathan, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing all right. It was never Mac Jones. I promised you that. I may have gotten everything else wrong about the draft, but it was never Mac Jones. And I told everybody that to just calm down. It was never Mac Jones. Like, we had good sources. It wasn't Mac Jones. Yeah. We got the Fields thing wrong, but hey, that's okay.
It was funny. It was actually you two, Nate and Duran. You both actually were just like kind of reassuring me, like, hey, it's not Mac Jones. You don't trade, those 2 draft picks and a third to go get somebody like Mac Jones. That's not it. And coming from, you two trusted football minds, kept me sane, kept me positive. But Nate, if you want to go ahead and let us know where we can find you, social media and whatnot, and any kind of, work that you're working on at the moment, let us know.
Totally. So you can find me at NinerNate49 on Twitter, which is like it's kind of an interesting thing because I was never really a big Twitter guy. I worked in radio and I kind of just used it to get news when I started. And over the course of the last year, it's actually like boomed and become a pretty important thing in like just my career and stuff because of the fact that I actually do work for Niners Nation and I produce a show for them. I produce and host a show with my co-host Leo Luna of 49ersgoldmine.com. And we do a show. It goes up every Tuesday morning. And it's called Niners Nation. That's really cool. And it's mainly just, whatever's on my mind, whatever I'm thinking, however I feel about the team. I got myself in a lot of trouble during the season because I started giving up on Jimmy Garoppolo pretty early, as opposed to a lot of people who kind of like stuck with him and just said he's injured. And that turned into what that show became. But yeah, every Tuesday, Niners Nation, it's always up. It's always there. Right now, because we're in the dead season, we're doing guests every week. So bringing on a lot of different people from different sources. And then also we're working on doing a whole NFC West preview in the month of June. So it's going to be pretty cool. I got a Seahawks guy coming on, a Rams guy, and a Cardinals guy already booked.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, I think, NFC West is actually one of the toughest. I mean, I don't know about you, Duran. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially usually there's always the weak horse in the race that like doesn't have a quarterback or something like that. But there's some solid teams there for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I am a listener of your show, man. I'm a big fan of it, and appreciate. You. I'll even up that bet with Leo right there. I mean, if it's not Trey starting, I'll also I'll send him a 4-pack of good old Sonoma County beers for sure. So
yeah, he's starting to talk a little bit less shit than he was when we first made that bet a couple of weeks ago. And it's kind of funny how things are waning down as the news comes out more and more about Trey and how he's actually with the ones and OTAs and stuff like that. And it's like, there might be something to this that Jimmy might not play another snap, but we'll see. It's a long off season. And that's why I've tried to like change the way we talk, where we're not just talking about Jimmy Trey all the time. We're trying to talk about like position groups. This week, we did a big deep dive on Julio and why it's smart for the 49ers to just, hey, I know it costs more draft picks and you already spent them on Trey Lance, but there is no reason you shouldn't spend more draft picks to get a wide receiver like that, who Kyle Shanahan is familiar with and can go out there. And I mean, they would kill people with Julio Jones. It wouldn't even be funny how bad they would kill people.
Duran, I know you're a Cowboys fan. How did you feel seeing Julio in that Cowboys sweatshirt?
I think it happens every year. A lot of NFL players wear Cowboys gear, especially during the draft and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember Melvin Gordon. He before we picked Zeke, he was wearing a ton of Cowboy stuff too. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
Those colors are good. The silver,
Yeah.
and, like as a Niner fan, I'll say like I think our colors are the best, the red and gold. But I love the silver and blue of the Cowboys. It's good looking. I wouldn't wear it ever, but I grew up with a grandfather who was a diehard Cowboys fan, and he always had Cowboy stuff on, and it always matched everything. It's not like you're wearing yellow and black like the Steelers,
Yeah.
green and blue like the Seahawks.
Yeah. Yep.
You got, good old Brett Michaels. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.
Exactly.
All right, man. Duran, you drinking on anything special or what?
Yeah. Good old vitamin water. Can't see it. Lemon flavored.
I got a shout out to a local brewery out here, 3 Disciples, drinking on that Pulp Fission. That's a nice little label.
I like that. That's cool.
It's delicious, man. Big shout out to them. They're hooking me up with a little 4-pack today. So shout out to 3 Disciples out there on Mendocino Avenue. Nate, you drinking anything special or what?
Yeah. Buddy from mine from the actually a listener of our show from the There Does Not Exist brewery up in San Luis Obispo sent us out a bunch of 4-packs, me and Leo, and I'm drinking currently the Hazy Pale Ale. I think this is my last one before I get onto the Hazy IPAs, which is my favorites. I save not use my favorite first, but yeah, this is really good. I've been drinking it during every podcast we've done since he sent them. Really good, and definitely support those guys if you're out in that area.
Hell yeah, that definitely will. But all right, man, we brought you on to ask you some questions. So again, we're not going to grill you. We just want to know about you. So Duran, you ready?
Been ready.
All right, Nate, you ready to get into this?
Oh, totally. Let's do it.
All right. So first things first, man, how did it all start? How did you become part of the faithful?
Well, here's the interesting part about that. The 49ers played a Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos in 1990. I'm pretty sure it was. And the score of that Super Bowl ended up 55-10.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the story I was told by my parents. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it, but they got bored at halftime because the Niners were kicking the Broncos' ass so bad. And 8 months later, I was born. And so ever since then, because my dad was diehard Niners. And so I've just kind of been like, that's my dad's team. I'll stick with them. And over time, it became a personality because, when, I got so into football right around the time that Jim Harbaugh came in because I was so fascinated with what he did at Stanford. And, we were terrible for a long time. And then when they finally started picking up and getting good, you kind of tend to deep dive a little more. And then I started learning about the game of football more because I think around that time I was 2018, something like that. And I liked the sport. I liked the Niners. I liked the Warriors, the Giants, the Sharks, the Bay Area teams, right? But I was never super deep into it all. And so when Harbaugh came in, I started just kind of getting more interested. And because of that, it just it snowballed into a thing that I couldn't control, actually, where after college, I was such a big Niner fan and just so into it. I applied for a job up in Seattle, and I was the only Niner fan at this radio station in Seattle. And there's some stories from there that have actually been pretty funny, but it's become a thing now where, I'm Niner Nate, and it's just kind of something I've ran with. It's super fun. And I like football more than I like any other sport. I love me some UFC, as you know, Gennaro.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, football is number one over everything. And it's just a lot more fun. And the fact that the Niners are, arguably one of the most important sports franchises in all of sports, not just football. It's pretty cool to be a fan of a team like that has so much history and so much stuff that even happened before you were born. When you really get into it, there's a lot of videos of just America's game stuff about those 49ers Super Bowls where you can really feel more connected to Joe Montana than I think a lot of people. I'm 30 years old. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily young, but there's still a lot of people who really don't understand how good Joe Montana and Jerry Rice really were. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of cool stuff you can go back and watch. And it really helps, I think, people enhance their fandom and appreciate the classics while also, enjoying the Kyle Shanahan and what the 49ers are doing now. The Super Bowl they went to just 2 years ago,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, shout out to Joe Montana too. I mean, Me and Duran play with this kid out here in Santa Rosa. But one thing that I heard actually doing this podcast, shout out to Jason Aponte, is that he said that his father actually referred to him as Jesus on cleats. And it was actually it was pretty interesting story. So I went back and I listened to it a little bit, and yeah, man, like you were saying, I really like that how you went back and look at America's Game. I mean, going back to that, I was a little baby and I hardly remember it, but I think it was 1995. Get the Cowboys NFC game at the Candlestick. It was, man, watching that game. I keep on watching over and over because I hardly remember it. But yeah, man, that's going back and look at the history of everything. I really like how you did that. That's awesome.
And it's funny because a lot of 49er fans, you ask them like, who is your favorite player on the 49ers? And like, I think everybody should say Jerry Rice because he is the greatest football player in the history of the league. But I think my favorite is Steve Young.
It's fine.
Oh, did you say it already? Oh, okay. Because we always like to guess. Duran, who was going to be your guess?
I was going to go with Patrick Willis. He's my favorite Niner.
I was actually going to go with Justin Smith, hearing that he was, in that hardball era. But Steve Young, okay. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a kid, I grew up, going to a lot of Niner games. And, like I tell you the story of how I was born with the whole, football game, 8 months later, born, right? Well, I didn't really become a diehard 49er fan until later in life when I was I think I was 7 years old. The 49ers were, Steve Young was the quarterback. Terrell Owens was the number one wide receiver on the team. And they were playing Green Bay in the wild card game. I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And I remember going to that game with my father. It was one of the last football games we went to at Candlestick for a long time because it was one of the last times they were really good, with Steve Young, because the next quarterback ended up being Jeff Garcia, who was fine, but he wasn't Steve Young. Steve Young is, there's an argument for him to be one of the great quarterbacks of all time, even though he only won one Super Bowl, because of the freak arm strength, the talent with the legs, everything. Anyways, so we go to this game, and, you're raised as a 49er fan to hate two teams as kids, and that's Green Bay and Dallas. And so, I never really had a hate for Dallas because my grandfather was from Texas, diehard Dallas Cowboys fan, had cowboy clocks, had a Troy Aikman jersey, old ass man with all this cowboy stuff. So I never really learned to hate them. But Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers, oh, hell fucking no. I hated them more than anything in the world. I hated the Green Bay Packers. And so when we got to that wild card game, and I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. I'm 7 years old. You don't remember a lot of things from when you're a kid. And when Steve Young hits Terrell Owens in the end zone with, I think it was 13 seconds left, an old ass man next to me, and I'm 7 years old, so he probably wasn't that old, but looking back on it, it seems like he was 50 or 60 years old. And he says to me, "You'll never forget this for the rest of your life." And I haven't. And I think that was the real day I became a 49er fan, was that day. And yes, there were many years after that where they were unwatchable trash, but
yes,
that was the day that I had solidified the fact that I would never root for another football team ever again, just because something like that is burning your mind. If you ask someone what is the greatest day of your life? Well, a lot of people would be well, the day I graduated, the day I got married, whatever, all that stuff, right? This is a top memory. That day is probably a top 3 memory for me. It's just unforgettable how I felt at 7 years old. That you don't feel those kind of feelings when you're that young, besides when you go to a sports game and you witness something like that. And it's funny because I have actual the tickets, the picture of Terrell Owens catching that ball, and something from that game on my wall in a plaque and it says the catch too. I got it, my dad got it engraved and gave it to me as a birthday gift as I got older. And so it's just one of those things, it'll be with me forever. And that is the main reason I'm a 49er fan to this day. Obviously there's many things now that have kind of evolved and changed that over the years, but that's the number one reason, is that game for sure.
Yeah, I remember that game for sure. I mean, to be in that Candlestick Stadium, feeling that energy, seeing Terrell Owens drop all those, crowd must have been,
he was awful,
cussed him out and everything like that. But man, just see him overcome adversity. and make that catch. And he got blasted too.
Oh, yeah.
And he hung on to that. Man.
That's the greatest catch of his career. And the thing about Terrell Owens, people don't realize is, yeah, he became kind of an asshole later down the line, but there's an argument for Terrell Owens to be top 6, top 7 wide receiver of all time. Like his career and what he did, like if he wasn't such a mess up, just can't seem to stay straight on the narrow, like keep it straight and narrow, he could have been up there with Jerry Rice. He was that good. It's just like we talk about Calvin Johnson. Like he was that good. He just didn't want to play with Detroit. Like there were always guys who had the chance to be Jerry Rice. And the reason Jerry Rice is the greatest of all time is because Jerry Rice did it and nobody's done it since. And, there's been guys with more talent, more everything than Jerry Rice, but Jerry Rice's work ethic is the reason he got where he is today.
And longevity, just seeing how good of shape T.O. was, and he couldn't get a job in the league. It was like he still could have been playing. It was just there becomes a point where your distraction outweighs your production, and he hit that threshold where people are just like, no, we could find someone with maybe not as much talent, but more, younger, and won't be that big of a distraction.
You definitely hit the nail on the head where you're out the field, becomes a distraction more than your play. That's such a good point. Circle back a little bit. So when you're watching the game in, like today, what's your game day setup like? Do you have kind of a superstition? Do you have to drink a certain beer? Are you a live streamer? Do you, what do you do? How do you go to a bar or what?
So when I lived in Seattle, I was actually a part of this group called the Seattle 49ers Faithful. And what we did is there was a bar, it was designated a 49er bar, or there was a part of it that was designated a 49er bar. And you would watch the game with other 49er fans because of the fact that the way that Seattle is, people don't truly understand until you live there. It's very much, it's called the Washington Freeze. If you're not like part of the Washington clique, they don't want anything to do with you. And that's how the 12s really are. The 12s are very much like, if you're not a Seahawks fan, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. And so, you can't go to a bar and just watch a Niner game as a Niner fan by yourself. It's just not possible because of the way that area is. And so I joined this group when I moved up there, and I watched football with them forever. And then last year during COVID, I decided to move back to California. And a lot of it is mainly wake up in the morning, put a jersey on. Doesn't really matter. It was Kittle for most of last year, but I will tell you I have a Trey Lance jersey coming in the mail. So I suspect that'll be used a lot during this season. I'm going to get a new Nick Bosa stitch because now they have stitched Nick Bosa's. And I really want to get Fred Warner, but I'm trying not to go too crazy on jerseys because if they do go to the Super Bowl, I would like to get one with the Super Bowl patch because I think if they do get the Super Bowl, they will win. Because and I do want to see if I can find the 75th anniversary patch and put that at least on one jersey as well. And so just a jersey, finding any TV, doesn't really matter. I'm not too superstitious with that stuff. The first game of the season last year against Arizona was the first time I'd been back in California in 5 years for a football game besides the NFC Championship. And then a couple games I went to at Levi's. But the first time I've watched a 49er game at home in California. And so I just had my dad come over and I sat with my dad and watched the game. But other games throughout the season, if it's a morning game, I'll wake up for the game's always on the TV. There's never a time where I'm going to miss the 49er games. And that's one thing I've done in my career is made sure I've had jobs where I have weekends off. Because early in, went back in the Harbaugh years, there would be times where I would miss Niner games because I was working on the weekends. And so I've tried to change that where weekends are, at least Sundays are sacred for football. And I literally watch football from 10 a.m. to, 9 o'clock at night. And I think that it's just such a, when there's only 16, now 17 weeks, but it's not like basketball where there's a million freaking games or baseball, there's a million freaking games. It's one of those things where you have 16, 17 weeks to watch your team usually. And I got used to the Niners not being in the playoffs for a long time. And so I like just to enjoy the football, watch Red Zone until the Niners come on, watch the Niners, then watch the Sunday night game. And then Monday night's kind of like, I don't really care too much unless it's a good matchup. But Monday night games tend to be the worst matchups of the prime time lineup games, that Thursday night football. But yeah, just watching football. And the thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize is watching football makes you better at understanding the game. I think that like it's weird because it's, you know, basketball, I think, yeah, you can understand the game a little more, baseball, but there's so many nuances about those sports that like you want to understand just by watching the game. I think football, you start to become a better fan by watching more games and paying attention to more. You don't have to always watch film. I think a lot of the guys I know and a lot of the guys I talk to watch film outside of the games, but I mean, just watching games and learning about players and learning, you know, schemes and stuff makes you a better fan and someone more interesting to talk to about football, as opposed to someone just being like, oh yeah, you know, Jimmy should have made that throw, or, you know, that should have been there. Jimmy just got hit too much. Like the offensive line didn't protect him. It's like, no, he stands there like a statue sometimes, and that's the reason he gets hit. Just like the reason that, you know, we talk about Russell Wilson. Sometimes he causes his own sacks, but don't tell a Seahawks fan that because they'll fight you.
Yeah. Do you remember your first Niners jersey? I know we're talking about jerseys.
Oh, that's a
Cody Pickett.
I think it was Jerry Rice. Yeah, I think it was Jerry Rice as a kid.
That's a good one.
I think I had like a Jerry Rice jersey when I was a young kid. And that was my first. I wasn't allowed to get a Terrell Owens as a kid. That was one thing my dad was really against because my dad thought he was an asshole.
Yeah.
My dad had a Joe Montana my whole life though. Like, my dad's never not had a Joe Montana. He has Joe Montana in the 49ers and in the Chiefs just because he loves that player so much. Because, I mean, think about this. You know, if you're 50, 60 years old, you saw that man win 4 Super Bowls. He's God to you. Just like Tom Brady is God to every New England fan for the rest of their lives, whether or not he wins another Super Bowl with the Bucs or not. You know, the guy brought them 5 Super Bowls. Like, he's God. Like, everyone's going to have – there are totally Buccaneers fans. Or I'm sorry, Patriots fans who have his jersey as a Buck because they don't care. They love the guy. You know, it's going to be weird when he plays them this season, you know, Tampa Bay, New England, like that's going to be weird. Yeah. But at the same time, like they love that man, just like the Niner fans love Joe Montana. So
100%. I got to ask you guys as football fans, and this could be a quick yes or no answer. So Tom Brady says he'll trade two of his Super Bowl rings for an undefeated season. Do you guys agree with that? Would you guys do that?
Nope.
No, I just want one, damn it.
Yeah.
I just want one that I'll remember. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I thought Garoppolo was definitely going to win that Super Bowl against Kansas City. And when they didn't win that, it was such a blow because I thought this was finally it. We were finally going to get a Super Bowl in my lifetime that I'll remember. Like, obviously, there was a Super Bowl when I was 5. But I don't remember that. You know, I remember the only thing I remember is that game I told you about when I was 7. And so the fact that they've been to 2 Super Bowls and they've lost both, like the next time they get there, they better damn well win.
Yeah, 100%. Man, I couldn't agree more with that. Oh, man.
Do you remember the first live game you attended?
The first live game, I think it actually might have been it might have been that wild card game, to be honest with you. That's what's crazy about it. I may have been at other games and I just don't remember. But we spent a lot of time at Candlestick because my dad was a Giant or was a A's or Giants season ticket. And so we went to we were Giants because I remember I still have the little button that says LA with the red circle and the line through it that they gave out whenever the Dodgers came to town at Candlestick. But it might have been the wild card game just because I was 7 years old and like, you know, football was a little more rowdy when you're younger. And I mean, I think it's still rowdy, but it's died down a little bit where like you can bring your kids. I think my dad was kind of against it. You know, we were raised a little bit more. We were never going to be Raider fans because of how scary the black hole was. So it's a lot of like that kind of stuff. And so it probably was that game, to be honest with you. And I think that's why it's such a big, important moment in like my fandom is just because like, that was the first game I ever went to like live. And that's what happens. Like, this is what the sport is. So obviously like I haven't been to any game as good as that, but I mean, I was at the NFC Championship the year they went to the Super Bowl. I spent it was $780 a ticket.
Woo.
And I paid it because I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl if they got there.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome, man. I mean, your first game to be the catch too. Not a lot of people can say that. That's awesome, man. I mean, I love that you have the plaque as well shout out to Pops for, making that. That's awesome. That's an awesome gift.
I should bring it in here and show it to you guys before we're done here. It's just in the other room. I can just take it off the wall. I'll show it to you before we're done.
Yeah, feel free.
So you guys can show it to your viewers. It's pretty cool. My dad did a kick-ass job on it.
Nice.
Is that like the holy grail of your memorabilia?
Yeah, I would probably say so. Like, just because it's the 2 tickets that me and my dad had at that game. And my dad put it on the scorecard and everything on there. It's pretty cool. Like, out of the stuff I own, like, it's probably my favorite thing that I own. But I mean, like, anything that has the 49ers on, I love. Like, when I lived in Seattle, I proudly hung a 5-time Super Bowl champions banner above my TV. So people walked into my apartment in Seattle and saw that and were like, okay. My password to my Wi-Fi, you can probably guess what it was. It was fuck the Seahawks. And so people would come over and they'd be like, hey, what's the password? I'd be like, it's F U C K T H E S E A. Oh, it's Seahawks. Huh? And I'm like, yep.
That's perfect. I got a question. I know you said your grandpa was a Cowboys fan. How did the switch happen from Cowboys, his generation, to Niners, your parents?
So my mom's side grandfather was a Cowboys fan. I didn't really know my dad's side family much, but they were also in Texas. But I think they were pretty, like, I don't think they were football guys. My grandfather was just a diehard Cowboys fan. So, like, if the Niners weren't playing the Cowboys, we rooted for the Cowboys because that was Papa's team. And so, like, that was always kind of a thing in my house. So I never, like, you know how, like, a lot of Niner fans tend to hate the Cowboys, like, with a passion. I've never been that way. And I think that's maybe helped me out a little bit in my career where I can appreciate Dak Prescott and Tony Romo for what they were and how good they are without, just shitting on them for no reason. Like a lot of fans tend to do, where like Tony Romo sucked. And it's like, no, he didn't. He was really freaking good. And he just had really unfortunate luck with his injuries. But the thing is, like, never hated the Cowboys my whole entire life. And that's something that's probably not popular with a lot of people, but hated the Packers. Always hated the Packers.
Yeah.
And living in Seattle made me hate the Seahawks. And
do you still hate the Packers?
Oh yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So you're eating up this Aaron Rodgers shit that's going on, huh?
I think it's funny, just because he has points. Like, why the fuck did you run that play when you're at the half against a team that you could totally beat in the Bucks? Like, he has points. Do I think he's going to get traded? I have absolutely no clue. If he leaves, they're done, because I don't, from what I've heard about Jordan Love, there's problems there that people don't know about and the people don't understand. Because think about this, right? The 49ers just drafted a quarterback at 3, right? And everyone is saying, well, he should start week 1. I love your shirt, by the way. I have it too. I just didn't wear it today. He should start, right? Week 1. Jordan Love was drafted what? Now we're not 2 years ago, almost, right?
What was it? 24th or something like that?
24th, right? I don't care. There should have been. He doesn't have to start last year, but it should have been where as soon as the season ended and they didn't win the Super Bowl, it should have been like, okay, are we trading this guy or are we going to play him? And they haven't had that conversation. Like, the fact that they are thinking about trading Aaron Rodgers instead of Jordan Love shows that they've made him feel like he's unwanted. And I think that the reason they keep saying we're not trading him is because Jordan Love isn't very good.
Yeah, he wasn't even active for half the season, which
their
really shows you.
Exactly.
Tim Boyle was his backup.
Yeah, Tim Boyle was his backup all year, not Jordan Love. And that's the thing, is like, if you told me week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles that Jimmy Garoppolo's playing and Nate Sudfeld's his backup, oh my God,
yeah.
I'm going to kill someone.
Yeah.
Because you don't draft a kid. I don't think you draft a quarterback in the first round unless you have the intention of him starting within a year.
Exactly.
That's right.
And especially if you draft a guy at 3, like Trevor Lawrence is starting, Zach Wilson's starting. They've already said they're starting without saying it. Yep. They have no backups. Why are we still having this conversation? The third string quarterback should start. I don't care who the starting quarterback is. You draft a guy 3rd overall and trade 2 first-round picks for it, he's should start. I don't care if it's Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't care if it's Tom Brady. I don't care who it is. You draft a guy 3rd overall, he should start.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we can get into more of this when it comes to future expectations for sure. But Duran, you ready to talk about favorite coaches?
I have one question just about his favorite player. I know we already talked about Steve Young, your favorite player, but is there anyone that you felt like was a little bit underrated that didn't get enough shine that was a 49er?
This is maybe not like underrated, but I think that people never really truly appreciated him as good as he was because of how bad of a head coach Mike Singletary was. But like, we talk a lot about Vernon Davis, and how good he was, I think, but I don't think people understand just how freaking good Vernon Davis was. And I think that's why the whole George Kittle thing is so wild, because he might actually be better than Vernon Davis. But the shit that Vernon Davis did week in and week out after Singletary finally shut him up and Harbaugh took over, I mean, the guy was a consummate pro. Even after he was gone, he was still making plays out in Washington. Like, that's the thing people forget is Vernon Davis. There was never a time when Vernon Davis was bad. I think people don't realize how good he was, especially in that game against the Saints. I mean, he was the only reason they won that game is how Alex Smith and him. Like, that was the reason they won that game, because they didn't play that well on defense. The Saints kept scoring willingly against a team that was supposed to be one of the better defenses in the league that year. And so I think people really don't realize just how good Vernon Davis was. I think that's probably not like the most interesting one for you to hear, but 85 to 85, there's no drop off. I'll say that. Like Vernon Davis, George Kittle, like there's no drop off between those guys. Those guys are both phenomenal tight ends, and the 49ers are lucky to have two guys like that in their history. You know, a lot of teams don't even see tight ends like that ever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, now that I'm thinking about the tight ends, I mean, you had Brett Jones, Eric Johnson, there weren't 85s, but yeah, Vernon Davis.
Dwight Clark. People forget. People talk about the catch a lot, but Dwight Clark was actually really good before that. Another one, Roger Craig. You know, like I know we talk a lot about him. Garrison Hurst.
Roger Craig, he belongs in the Hall of Fame, man. 100%.
Boom. Like, that's where I was going with that. Roger Craig should be in the Hall of Fame. Like Roger Craig is that good, and I understand the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is because he was on these teams that were so stacked. But the reason they were so stacked is because Bill Walsh knew how to run a freaking offense like nobody's business.
Thank you.
And he contributed a shit ton. It's like he helped those teams become stacked.
Bill Walsh is the second greatest coach of all time. I don't care what anybody says. You can say it's Mr. Packer, you know, fine, whatever. It was what was the year? It was like that was in like the 1960s. He was winning Super
I think
Bowls.
it's before that.
I understand the trophy's named after him. I get it. Like the trophy is named
Lombardi.
after him. Yeah. He's very important. I get it. But Bill Walsh was a better head coach than Lombardi ever was.
Definitely. And like one thing that me and Duran always talk about is like if you're in the Hall of Fame, it's because like you did something like first. Like Roger Craig, he was the first 1,000 yard receiving, 1,000 yards rushing running back. And he was doing Marshall Faulk things before Marshall Faulk. And he's not in the Hall of Fame. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Roger Craig is I met that guy a million times. He's super humble, super nice. Like
I heard that.
I think that he's probably mad that he's not in the Hall of Fame, but I think at the same time, like he's such a nice guy. He's just like, whatever. I have 4 freaking Super Bowl rings. Like, okay.
Yeah. He's probably accepted it by now too. One guy that I did want to bring up, I told you I love Patrick Willis, just watching his tape, but was Navarro Bowman. I mean, that was probably the best linebacker duo that I've ever seen. I know he was a little bit undersized for a linebacker, but just seeing him play, it's like he could still play today in this pass heavy NFL, even more than it was then. He had great range, pass coverage. He just couldn't stay healthy. And me and G were actually at one of the games where he got hurt, and you just saw immediately how the defense changed. So Navarro
Bowman, he was, I mean, that dude, Bowman was probably my favorite 49er, at least in those Harbaugh years. Like, you know, I don't think anybody's favorite Niner was like any of the offense. You know, you're not loving on Michael Crabtree. You're not loving on, you know, I like Colin. I think he was really talented. And I liked Alex Smith. I think that it was cool to finally see him get a real head coach who had a real offensive game plan. But like everybody's favorite player during those Harbaugh years was either Navarro Bowman or Patrick Willis.
Yep.
And it was always those two. And I have a Bowman jersey still. Like, I respect the hell out of that guy. He came back and he came for a day and he retired a 49er, and I'll love him forever for that. He just couldn't stay healthy. And I'll never forget the day that he got hurt in the NFC Championship in the game, and the Seahawks fans threw stuff at him. And the funny thing is, that looks bad on the Seahawks fans, but that's how they actually are. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, people think, oh, well, that was just a bad bunch. No, they're that rowdy. The 12s are that. That's who they are. That's just who they are. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with being rowdy, but like, being disrespectful is another thing. And I just think that the Seahawks fans back in 2012 and 2013, they didn't understand success, because think about this about Seattle. They have had a baseball team who's never been to a World Series, ever. They've had a Seahawks team who won the Super Bowl with Mike Holmgren, and they were, I think, 7-9 or something like that year. Like, they weren't good. They just got to the Super Bowl and got lucky.
They didn't win that Super Bowl.
Oh, no, you're right. They didn't win. You're right. They didn't even win. But the fact that they got to that Super Bowl at all, like, they didn't know what that looked like until that year, right? And so then Pete Carroll comes in with Russell Wilson, and, you know, they have this new success that they've never seen before. It was kind of like, and this is me kind of shitting on Warrior fans a little bit, but remember when the Warriors were so good and they played the Cavs in the finals, and we all kind of saw it coming before they played the Cavs that the Warriors were probably going to win the finals. And then all these Warrior fans came out of nowhere who had never, ever been to Oracle Arena once in their life. It was like that, but in Seattle. And in Seattle, it's a different atmosphere because they don't have a basketball team.
They lost it.
Supersonics pieced out.
Yeah.
And they still wear Supersonics gear out there. They don't have a hockey team. They do now, but they didn't when I lived there. They didn't have one that won the Super Bowl. And, you know, the baseball team had Ken Griffey Jr., and they didn't win a World Series. And so they kind of saw the writing on the wall with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and the Legion of Boom. And everyone who was anyone said, well, we have no other sports teams. And they just flocked. And so there are good Seahawks fans out there. There truly are. But when you have a team who is so good that everybody in the entire state is rooting for them now and going to the games and paying them money, the scumbags are going to come out. And that's what happened with the 2013 Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
The scumbags came out, they took over the clink, and they were awful. I mean, the stuff they did in that game is unforgivable. You know, I have friends who are Seahawks fans, but you look back on that game, and that's got to be a low point in anyone's fandom.
Yep, we've seen that at a couple places.
Man, to bring it back to Navarro Bowman, I mean, Duran, I know Bowman rocked 11 at Penn State, and your boy, you guys has just drafted, rocked 11 at Penn State. And I was listening to, I forget what it was, but it was a Penn State based podcast. He goes, man, I haven't seen a linebacker like this since Navarro Bowman. And I mean, that's good. That's good hopes for you for sure. But yeah, man, I remember watching that game where he got hurt against the Cowboys. My heart sank. I sat down, and you put your arm around me. You're like, that was a non-contact.
Yeah, like, we knew exactly when that happened. It happened in the third quarter, and before Navarro Bowman went out, Zeke had 40 yards, and he ended that game with 138.
Yeah, like he went ham after that, and I remember like it broke my heart, and I just didn't want to. Like, I just didn't want to do anything for the rest of the game. I was so sad. I stopped drinking, stopped everything. I was like, man, fuck this, man. I'm pissed. Like,
that was the beginning of the end. I mean,
yep.
And the thing is, people don't realize is like the bad things that happened to the 49ers actually turned out to be good things, because the fact that they had to have Chip Kelly and the fact that they had to have Jim Tomsula is why they had Kyle Shanahan, who is, and this is probably the fan in me, he's a top 3, top 5 head coach in this league. And what he's done already is insane. Like, to take a team, like, you understand this, Gennaro.
Yep.
The roster that he inherited was one of the worst football rosters I've ever watched in my entire life. And we watched the Niners in the early 2000s. And he took that team in 3 years to a Super Bowl. Like, how many other head coaches are going to do that besides Bill Belichick? Like, I don't even think Andy Reid could do that. Like, Kyle Shanahan is that damn good. And I think people are really underappreciating just how lucky the 49ers and their fans are to have Kyle freaking Shanahan on the field every week. it almost makes me cry just how happy I am to have a head coach that is that freaking good and that's feared by everybody.
Well, speaking of head coaches, I mean, who is he your favorite head coach of all time for the 49ers, or who is it?
It's hard because Bill Walsh wasn't around when I was, alive, really. And so I love me some Steve Mariucci. I love him to death, but he didn't win shit.
Whoosh.
I didn't win shit, but I still love Steve Mariucci. I still really appreciate him. But I think like now looking back on it as an adult, I think it's Kyle Shanahan. Really, I really do, because I think that Harbaugh was great, but Harbaugh was a product of the 49ers being really, really good and having a head coach that had no freaking idea what he was doing in Mike Singletary. And Harbaugh came in and said, well, shit, look at what I'm inheriting, and was able to take that team and actually win football games. Mm-hmm. What Shanahan has done is just, it doesn't happen. Like, it just doesn't. Like, you don't have a team whose number one wide receiver is Jeremy Curley one year, and then 3 years later they're playing in the Super Bowl and they're 10 minutes away from hoisting the trophy. Yeah. If, the quarterback plays just slightly better. Like, and the thing was, like, Garoppolo played really badly in that fourth quarter, but he only had to play a little bit better and they still win. And he probably still gets MVP, which is crazy to think, because I mean, that's probably one of the worst quarterback MVP performances you've ever seen. And so it's just what Shanahan has done and where the 49ers are now and the way that people talk about the San Francisco 49ers. I just think the Trey Lance pick, as long as it wasn't Mac Jones, which we all knew it wasn't Mac Jones, as long as it wasn't Mac Jones, they bought themselves another 5 years. And in 5 years, I think they're going to win a Super Bowl. I think that the 49ers will hoist the Lombardi Trophy in the next 5 years. And I think that every Twitter asshole, every Twitter idiot who keeps saying they need to fire Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, I think that it's going to come back to bite them one day when they're hosting that trophy and Kyle has this big, dumb, shit-eating grin on his face while he's hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. And you can go back and find people's tweets who are like, they need to fire Kyle Shanahan. It's like, yeah, don't you feel stupid now? Like, imagine saying they need to fire Bill Walsh. Or, you're a Cowboy fan. Imagine what they said they had to fire. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Who's the head coach at 1-3?
Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson. God.
Oh, Jimmy. I thought you were.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Any Seahawks fan or any Cowboy fan who says that, who actively was out of their way saying they needed to fire Jimmy Johnson. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. And I think that that's what Shanahan's going to end up being in the end. Like, people are going to look stupid one day for ever saying it, because I think that he's just. You watch the film and you watch the stuff he's doing with, complete nobodies last year when they're injured like they are. And it's astounding. It's just. Yeah.
I think he just needs to win the big game a couple times and he'll be up there with Seifert and Bill Walsh and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I think he's better than Seifert now. That's a hot take here, but I think he's better than Seifert right now, because Seifert inherited the Bill Walsh 49ers. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, like, Seifert's smart. He's a good head coach. Was fine. But Shanahan did what he did with nothing. Like, I can't get over the fact, like, if you look it up, if you want to pause this real quick and look up the fucking roster the 49ers had 3 years ago, and think about the fact that 3 years they went to the Super Bowl. Like, it takes some teams to go from that to they never get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. They sit there at 8-8 forever.
Reminds me of Philly. Philly did it with Doug Peterson. And I think it was in 2 years. They drafted their quarterback, and obviously he didn't he got hurt and didn't get to win that Super Bowl.
They were a little more talented than those 49 games.
Their defensive line especially, and offensive line were really good.
I remember trying to talk myself in. I was like, okay, Brian Hoyer, he might get it done. How dumb was I? You know what I mean?
It's funny looking back on those Brian Hoyer games. He's terrible, right? Like, he's probably better than CJ, probably better than Nick, right? But he's not better than Jimmy. And Jimmy's like when we're talking about quarterbacks, right? So like Jimmy's exactly middle in the NFL. So out of 32 teams, he's like 16, 17, right? Like, the highest, Hoyer is like getting to the 20s. CJ's like awful. McMullins is awful. I don't even want to number them, right? And they almost won a lot of games. Like, a lot of those games they lost. I think they lost 5 games by single scores.
Yeah.
With freaking Brian Hoyer. And that's when fans who understand football sort of realize there's something to this.
Mhm.
There's a little more to this than I think people think there is. Like, he's that damn good. And if he gets a quarterback who's at least mediocre, they're going to win a lot of football games. And look what happens. Mediocre Jimmy comes in and Super Bowl. Imagine if Trey Lance is Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Russell Wilson or anything like that. They're going to run this freaking league. And that's all we have to hope for, is that Trey Lance is that.
Yeah, and then like in their first year, Jim Harbaugh, Lynch, he was just going with his like gut there, and he's like, "Oh man, I want Solomon Thomas out of class with him. I want Reuben Foster because I can fix that guy." Just imagine if they were, their mindset now, like being as cohesive as we are, like it'd be way different.
To be fair, I'm gonna talk up Solomon Thomas real quick because a lot of people talk shit on him. He was one of the best draft picks in the league going into that
out of place
season.
though. They're playing him outside. I think
they played him out of place. That's the thing, is like he was crazy talented. I worked at Stanford when he was there, and there were scouts there all the time looking at him. Like, he was insanely talented. That was a smart pick. Now, should they have gone quarterback when your best quarterback on your roster is Brian Hoyer? Yeah, you should have. But the Solomon Thomas pick wasn't as bad as people look back on it being. The Reuben Foster pick was, because there was a lot of character issues, even though his talent outweighed it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. I always we talked about Shanahan being a top 5 coach, like you said, head coach. To me, as far as offensive minds go, I only have Andy Reid and probably Sean Payton ahead of him. And then, those guys have just been doing it longer and have had more success. But then that next tier, they got 2 guys that are kind of identical to me. And he's in your guys' division down there at the Rams, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. Both of them, their dads were coaches. Both of them are pretty young for head coaches. Both of them have made it to a Super Bowl. Both of them have traded for quarterbacks, and they're in the same division. How do you kind of stack those guys against each other?
McVay's interesting because I think this is the biggest year of McVay's career. Mm-hmm. And this isn't the biggest year of Kyle's career. That's next year. Yeah. This year is Kyle needs to get his rookie quarterback on the field. That's the thing that Kyle needs to focus on. Mm-hmm. That rookie quarterback needs to get snaps in the NFL. That's the number one thing this year. I want them to make the playoffs, but Trey Lance needs to play. Mm-hmm. McVay, on the other hand, this is the biggest year of his career because he's had Jared Goff for so long. And I said goof on purpose because he's a goofball. He just looks like an idiot on the football field. Mm-hmm. And so now he has Matthew Stafford. And anybody who understands football knows Matthew Stafford's probably a top 8 quarterback in this league and has been for the last 10 years, maybe longer than that. Like, he's been good for a long time. And so now McVay has this quarterback who is talented and can do anything on the football field. And if the Rams don't win, that's going to look weird for McVay because we talk about how he's this offensive genius all the time, like Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan's won football games with freaking Nick Mullins. Like, I understand McVay's won games with Jared Goff. Yeah. But, like, Kyle Shanahan went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, who is actually worse than Jared Goff in some ways. I think that's something that people don't realize is that, Jared Goff is the better of those 2 quarterbacks. And if McVay wanted to move off Goff, the 49ers should move off Jimmy Garoppolo. But I'm getting back on my soapbox. The thing is if McVay does not win with Stafford, and I mean by win, I mean like NFC Championship, like win the division. They are the favorite to win this division, whether we like it or not. The Rams should absolutely win the NFC West this year. And if they don't, and the Niners do, or even hell, the Seahawks do, I don't know, because their window's closing real fast. Like, they paid Jalen Ramsey a lot of money.
And they have no draft capital. I mean, I think McVay's got a few more years there. He's never had a losing season. He's had multiple like top 3 offenses. So I think his leash is a little bit longer there. But some of these guys, this is even I feel like Shanahan, this move right here, this is like you said, not this year, but next year. It's next year. Yeah, these are the make or break years for some of these coaches.
I think that one thing that Shanahan does have is, and this is something I guess not a lot of people know, is that Jed did not hire Kyle and John. John was hired by Kyle. Kyle was hired by Denise. Denise was the one who hired Kyle. And so that's why Kyle has a longer leash than any of these coaches have had recently, because Jed did not hire him. Denise hired Kyle because Denise was tired. I think that's her name. Denise DeBartolo. I'm pretty sure is her name.
The sister, right?
Yes. She hired him because they were tired of hiring. They picked Kyle Shanahan because they wanted him to be the coach for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as he can get some winning seasons under his belt, they'll keep him around. And now the fact that they let him make the move up to 3, and if Trey Lance turns out to be, honestly, he just has to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he has to be Patrick Mahomes, but I think that they do believe they have Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things they say, the way they talk, the things that come out from I have a couple of friends who may have some sources within the organization, and the things they've said about him, it sounds like they think they have Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what they think they have, then they're going to be successful, and he's going to be around for a long, long time. But he doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He just has to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's just above average consistently. Jimmy Garoppolo is not above average consistently. Jimmy Garoppolo is above average 1 or 2 games out of the season, and that's why Kyle decided to move off of him. And Kyle's smart. Kyle knows what he wants, and I think that Trey's what he wants, and I think that they're going to see success.
Mm-hmm.
That's me predicting, without seeing him play an NFL snap. But I would trust Kyle Shanahan with my life if I had to. I think that he's that good at everything he does.
Yeah, like you're saying, he needs to string together some of those winning seasons. I think he did. They signed an extension that has him there for what is it, 9 years, 10 years, something like that. He's
there
Lynch.
For a long time. They're not going anywhere.
Years. It's like the next, I don't know. It's at least the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Is he the reason why you're Bill straight on your hat?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I can do it backwards. It doesn't really matter. I honestly, I just wanted to show the Niner logo because I had an RVCA shirt on, and I was like, I should probably wear something with Niners on it.
That's a dope hat. I mean, I like how he'll rock a hat. Like I remember seeing the gray hat that he wore.
Yeah.
And I went to go see how much it cost on Fanatics, I think it was, or NFL.com, and it was sold out. Yeah. And that's the kind of impact he has on it. I mean, even just fashion.
He's got style. Like that's the thing. He's not just a good head coach. He's also got style.
I remember when we brought in Manny Sanders, he was just like, man, I never met a coach and he's rocking Yeezys. Come on, dude. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? And then
Kyle's the dude.
Wayne, that's awesome.
He's that's a guy who will always have a job in this league, whether it's with the 49ers or not. And I think that as long as the Niners are smart, he's not going anywhere. I don't give a shit about the losing seasons. Like, it sucks to watch a losing season. But when you know in every game that your head coach is smarter than whoever the other head coach on the other side of the field is, it's all personnel. And when Jimmy Garoppolo can't stay healthy, that's the reason you're losing games and your defense can't stay healthy. Like, if they can stay healthy this season, they're going to be a playoff team. Now, when they win, will they win the Super Bowl? I don't know. But I think if Trey Lance gets into the playoffs, Kyle's not going anywhere for a long time.
So all of the coaches, obviously you alluded to some with Tom Sula and Chip Kelly. They can't all be great coaches. And I think both of our, organizations can agree to that. But I'm going to ask you.
The clapper. The Cowboys, the clapper.
He's the man, right?
The clapper.
So I'm just curious.
Sorry, I had to talk a little shit.
No, that's fine. He's with the Giants now, so our future's brighter.
I'm just curious. Sorry, I'm just curious. Who is your least favorite head coach, and why is it Mike Nolan?
It's not Mike Nolan.
Oh wow, okay.
We haven't had Mike Nolan. Who is it?
It's Mike Singletary.
Oh, Mike Singletary.
What an idiot. What an
Can't do
idiot. What an idiot.
All the Niner fans so far have said Chip Kelly.
No, Chip Kelly.
It's been unanimous, Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly was a disappointment.
No? Damn.
Chip Kelly was a disappointment, but Chip Kelly was like, it was a product of the fact that his roster was literally one of the worst rosters I've ever seen on a football field ever. And that's why we talk about Shanahan so much, because the Chip Kelly year was the worst 49ers roster I've ever seen live in my entire life. They were awful. Like, it wasn't even the fact that Colin Kaepernick was regressing. It was the fact that he had no help. Like, Colin couldn't do anything in any game because nobody was good. Yeah. Nobody was good on those teams. Mike Singletary it's just crazy to think. Mike Singletary had a team that when he left, and a competent head coach came in, Jim Harbaugh. And don't get twisted, Jim Harbaugh was a good head coach, but he wasn't a great head coach. There were problems there. You know, he relied on Greg Roman on offense, and I don't give a fuck what anybody says. He sucks. And so Mike Singletary has this roster. They can't even make the freaking playoffs. They can't do anything. And Harbaugh comes in the first year, and it's just like, NFC Championship. Like, what the fuck? And that's the craziest thing about it, is just like Singletary was so bad. Like that, like, and this the defense was like drafted well, I guess. Like they had a good defense, but like on offense, they were just like Alex Smith just couldn't do anything. Like I think that was the year we heard like you went to Candlestick and they started chanting "We want Carr," and it's just like can you be anywhere? It's like I understand like Mike Nolan was bad, but I really think that Mike Singletary is the worst head coach ever. Like he's so bad. Like I cannot get over the fact that Harbaugh comes in the first year as a head coach, goes to the freaking NFC Championship with a team that couldn't even make the playoffs. It reminds me of when Steve Kerr came into the Warriors and they immediately go to the finals and win after what's his name leave? What's his name?
Mark Jackson.
Announcing Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson sucks. He's got to be the worst head coach in Warriors history. Man down. He had Steph Curry, and I understand that like Steph Curry was hurt a lot, but like that roster was stacked and they were drafting so well. And people forget, like they lost Monte Ellis and got Klay Thompson, and people like they ended up getting Klay Thompson in the end. Like when they lost Monte Ellis, I remember the day they lost Monte Ellis, like people were like crying in college. I was in a college class where people were crying because people love Monte Ellis so much. And Monte Ellis turned into Klay Thompson. And this man, Mark Jackson, still couldn't win with Klay Thompson. Like it's the same scenario. And that's where my like hatred of a head coach comes, is when like, you know how good the team is, you know where the talent is, and someone comes in and maximizes that talent. That's when you realize how stupid or how bad a head coach is when someone can come in and immediately take them all the way to the Super Bowl, all the way to the NFC Championship, or all the way to a finals championship win. You know, it's the craziest thing to me. Like
I can totally see how Mike Singletary was your worst, because I remember he hired Jimmy Ray as his offensive coordinator, and I remember getting a text from my buddy, and I was like, "Who's Jimmy Ray?" He goes, "Oh yeah, and Greg Minuski is the defense coordinator." I was like, "Oh god," and I was just
Alex Smith was doomed from the day that Mike Singletary got hired.
I don't know how many quarterbacks that guy Mike Singletary had to argue with. Man, he argued with Troy Smith, Alex Smith. I mean, come on, dude.
Well, he also wasn't helping Alex Smith. Alex Smith, I think, had like 5 offensive coordinators in like 6 years or something stupid like that. And that's the thing, is like you can't, no matter if you're a first round pick of the NFL draft, like you can't be successful after that. It's just impossible.
Yeah. It's
the one thing Mike Singletary ever did was he actually did yell at Vernon Davis and why he was so good later on. But
yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't do it with him. Couldn't play with him. Couldn't win with him. Get the hell out of here, Mike Singletary. We don't need another Dennis Green type of rant, dude. Get out of here.
Well, that's what he wanted to do. You know, he wanted to, playoffs. That's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be that kind of head coach.
More type of stuff.
I was like, oh my God, dude, shut up. And then they finally get rid of him and they bring in Jim Harbaugh, the most successful like Stanford head coach in like forever. And they immediately go to the freaking NFC Championship. Like,
I think I know you said that he relied a lot on Greg Roman. I think he might have relied a lot on Vic Fangio.
Oh no! I didn't say he relied on Greg Roman. I said Greg Roman sucks, and I think misheard he wasted his time with Greg Roman. He relied on Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio was the reason the 49ers were so successful, and I think Harbaugh was just kind of a hard ass.
Still rooting for Vic Fangio out there in Denver, man.
If they get Aaron Rodgers, sure, but if their quarterbacks are Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock,
good luck.
Good luck. You should have drafted Justin Fields, but that's a story for a different day.
I couldn't agree with you more, but man, that was a different one. I mean, I honestly thought someone might have said Mike Nolan because of his stupid ass Reebok suit, but yeah, man, I guess the unanimous one was Chip Kelly.
Singletary is just awful.
So, you ready to move on with the section, Duran?
Yeah.
So your favorite 49ers memory, you mentioned that you've been to a lot of games, a lot more than I have, and I'm a diehard 49er fan as well. But I'm just curious, man, what's your favorite one? What's your favorite 49er moment of all time?
So the cop out would be that the Packers wild card game, but I'm actually going to give you a different one because it's
Okay.
mental health awareness month. I want to give you a different one. You know, when we go through things in life, there's certain things sports can do for us that kind of can uplift you, make you feel better, even for a couple hours. And the year the 49ers went to the Super Bowl, I was going through one of the hardest times in my life, going through a divorce, a lot of different things. And so buying those tickets was more of just like a release to get away from everything that was going on in my life. You know, there was a lot of things going wrong without getting into too much detail. You know, depression was setting in pretty badly. And so buying those tickets to that NFC Championship and just deciding to go by myself, take a flight by myself to the Bay Area, you know, hang out with some friends in the parking lot before the game. But, you know, my seats were by myself in that game. And for 4 hours, like the rest of the world didn't matter. You know, the things that were going on, the way the world was happening around me, it didn't matter for 4 hours. And, you know, seeing Kyle Shanahan on that big screen and John Lynch and all them just smiling and, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle with the shirts on that say NFC champions. It's one of those things that is able to take your mindset, no matter how poor it is, no matter how messed up things are going on in your life outside of that Levi's Stadium boundary, and it shuts it off. And I think that in that time, when I was at that NFC Championship, that was probably the happiest I had been in 2 years, probably. Just because it was the ability to be there and enjoy this moment while letting the rest of the problems and the things I'm dealing with, you know, when I get back to Seattle or what I'm dealing with, any depression, any feelings, any, you know, mental, you know, just anything mental health, that kind of stuff. You know, when you're in something that is that uplifting, that exciting, that, you know, everything, it's like a sensory overload. It allows you to just kind of let loose in a way that, like, you know, you're not normally able to do with just anything. And so being at that NFC Championship game and seeing the 49ers, you know, host that NFC Championship trophy, despite the fact that, you know, I knew what was going on in my life at the time. I knew the horrible things that were waiting for me when I got back home in Seattle, and things, just that kind of stuff. That mental health, like just 4 hours of just happiness. It's unforgettable. It's unrepeatable in a way, because, you know, when you go back outside of Levi's Stadium that you're going back to that shit and having to deal with that again. But for those 4 hours, that shit didn't matter. And it's indescribable how that can make you feel, even if it's just for 4 hours, and how much that can help your mental health, and just make you forget about just bullshit. You know,
it's crazy how that football has that effect on your life. Because I remember when the whole pandemic started, Duran, my best friend, who's going to be my best man at my wedding, he said something that I'll never forget. He said, man, the world needs sports because they need to forget about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And it hit me, and I'm like, wow, he's absolutely right. Because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all my favorite memories, and it happened to rely around football, whether it's me playing with him on the same team or whether it's just watching it. And the fact that took you away from all your problems and everything, that shows you how emotionally attached you are to your team, to the 49ers. Yeah, how attached you are, emotionally attached, mentally attached, like you're forever bonded in the faithful. And dude, that's awesome, man. Cheers to you. That hit the heart for sure, man. That's awesome.
It's that NFC Championship was more emotional than I think it was going to be, just because of the fact that, like, you know, like going to an NFC Championship alone is an amazing thing, just to be there. And, you know, even if your team doesn't win, just everything about it, the fireworks, the planes, just the people parachuting in, it's the NFC Championship. It's the second biggest game, you know, in all of football, right? You know, or I guess it's tied with the second for the AFC Championship, whatever. But, you know, just being there and being in that atmosphere, and then just like being able for it to help like it did, and just, you know, making me feel better about some of the horrible stuff I was going through as a person and as a man.
Yeah.
It was it's pretty crazy that something did that.
So I've been in a lot of locker rooms and also clubhouse with you as well. And I listened to your podcast, like I was saying, with you and Leo. Did I hear you correctly saying that you went to that week 16 game where we played against Seattle wearing 94 throwbacks? Did you go to that game? Was that you?
I did not. I was at a Seattle bar
Okay.
watching that game.
Gotcha.
I think it was Leo who actually went.
Okay.
Or someone else went. I didn't get to go. I wish I did. But that was just a crazy year for me. A lot of things were going on that I couldn't control, and also I would have been there absolutely. But yeah, that's another moment. Like if I was there, that would probably be unforgettable too, just because fuck the Seahawks fans.
Yeah, that one came down to the wire. That was a great game.
Yeah, man. The NFC Championship game, I remember I was at my buddy's house. He calls it the Cree Tavern. Shout out to Chris and Mike and the boys. We're smoking stogies. They were excited. I remember I was like crying because this is the first time since the Ravens one where I'm just like around people who I love and whatnot, and to fill that with them, but for you to fill with absolute strangers and just celebrate and embracing like everybody like that's got to be, you're feeling like the players' emotions there. So that's an awesome memory for sure.
I stopped drinking at the second half because I just wanted to experience it all. Like I was like drinking, pre-game before the game and drinking up to the half. But like up into the half, I was like, I think I'm just gonna stop because they're gonna win. Because I had people from Seattle text me, "You're going to the Super Bowl. You're going to the Super Bowl." Like, and I'm like, no, not yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And they're winning like 30-7 and something stupid like that. It's like,
I remember Durant. I think Durant called me at like a halftime. He goes, "Hey man, congrats." And I was like, shut the fuck up, dude. Yeah. Like, you never know. Like, I remember just being so nervous. And, man, but that's awesome. Durant, anything else on this one?
No, man. That was a great story. Thanks for sharing.
Totally.
Okay, so you built that up, and I hate to tear you down, but they can all be happy. So we're just curious. As a 49er fan, what was, like, your least favorite memory?
When they lost the Super Bowl to Kansas City.
Yeah,
okay.
Probably.
I thought that was the obvious one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just without getting too much into like what I was going through in my life. I was in the middle of a divorce. There was a lot of other things in my life that I couldn't control that were just like crumbling around me. And it's one of those things where the highs from the NFC Championship were like, if they win the Super Bowl, like everything in my life is going to heal. And that's kind of just like, that's a person thing. Every person has those moments where they're like, this is going to fix every problem, right? And so when they lost that Super Bowl, I remember being in a bar in Seattle, a bunch of friends, and I had to leave the bar and I just went outside and I cried. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it just everything that I had been, because after the NFC Championship, the high I was riding from going to the Super Bowl was still there. Maybe not have been as high when I was at the game, but it was still, here. And then when they lost the Super Bowl, reality kind of crashed and hit there. And I was like, oh shit. Like I have to go back to like a world without the 49ers, a world where like, this didn't fix everything. I still have to go deal with this problem. I still have to go sign these papers. I have to do this and that, and, different things like that. And it was, when they lost the Ravens, it was hard. But when they lost to the Chiefs, it was one of the most devastating things I've ever experienced, I think. Like, just because of what it meant to me to win the Super Bowl after what I was going through, because this was the thing that was keeping me stable, I think. Like, when you're going through bad depression, you have to find that one thing that kind of keeps you from, especially in Seattle where the sun doesn't shine much and you're losing vitamin D constantly. That place tends to have a lot of suicide problems for a reason, because there's no sun. It's kind of a depressing place to live. Yeah. And so finding that thing that helps you get over the hump, and that's what it was the 49ers. And so when we lost that Super Bowl, it was just like, damn, this is so fucking hard to deal with, because I have to go back to like just living normal. And there was probably like a good 2 hours after that Super Bowl, I was just like speechless. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what to say, because I was just like, it's hard to explain to you guys, actually, just because looking back on it, I don't know what I expected, like how I expected it to change everything. And it didn't change everything because they lost. But even if they did win it, it wouldn't have changed anything. It was just like that wave was just so high from being at the NFC Championship that I thought, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. I'm like, I cried at both losses in the Super Bowl. I thought maybe we have a chance against the Ravens. I remember I just like left where I was at there and just went home and just cried myself to sleep. Same thing to with the Chiefs one. I remember my fiance drove. I was like, you got to drive. Like, I'm pissed. She drove, and I just like was just sitting there, just like I was having all these text messages from my very best friends, my family saying like, "Oh man, like what's going on?" Like, I just threw my phone in the back seat and just put my hands in the heads. I feel you on that one, man. So like it was unfortunate for sure, but we'll be back there. We'll be back there.
Well, Trey Lance is going to win a Super Bowl. I promise you that. That's something I'll promise your listeners. Trey Lance will win a Super Bowl.
I don't know. He went to QBU, guys. I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they have one Super Bowl winner, Carson Wentz.
Technically, he did not win that Super Bowl. He got them to the Super Bowl. He was very good that season. He got them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But like he'll never see another Super Bowl with the Colts. They're just a weird team. I don't think they're good enough to win the Super Bowl.
But what if they trade for Julio?
Maybe.
I never know why they don't use up their cap space and kind of shore up their team, because they always seem like they're a couple players away, from having a pretty decent team and winning that division. But
they're weird.
Yeah.
They got the second best linebacker in the game, Leonard. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on to future expectations, G?
Yeah, man. You can go and lead the way on this one, man.
All right. Yeah, I think we talked about Trey Lance a little bit. I want to move on to the other guys that you drafted. Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas. I know you guys got a couple or 3 5th rounders and a 6, but do you have a favorite out of that group of guys?
It's Trey Sermon. Whether he's been injured with Oklahoma, he's been injured in Ohio State, I understand that. But like with Kyle Shanahan, think about the running backs he's had over the course of his career. I love Frank Gore. Carlos Hyde was cool, but like Carlos Hyde turned out to be a bust, and he was drafted by Trent Baalke. So yeah. I don't care what anything about Trent Baalke back picks, because I think he's a bad GM. And so, his running backs have been Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, Jeff Wilson, a lot of these guys undrafted dudes who, in the grand scheme of things are nobodies. Trey Sermon is a name. Like, I wanted Najee Harris. Yeah, that's what I wanted, because he's a Bay Area kid. He has that talent.
Antioch, yeah.
But Sermon is a name. Mm-hmm. And I know we shouldn't get hyped on running backs, but when you have a run game that is this good every single week, no matter what, and you have an offensive line that is this much improved, and Aaron Banks will probably start at guard at some point during the season. I think he probably starts at guard at the beginning of the season. I think Brunskill is used as a guy they move back and forth, but that's
utility man. Yeah.
Yeah. Trey Sermon's exciting. He's really exciting because I think that he's running back 1, and he could be a fantasy running back that people actually want because he's on the 49ers. People want Raheem Mostert because he's on the 49ers. Raheem Mostert was a nobody who played special teams before he was a 49er. Trey Sermon has the ability to cut. He has the ability to do things that I don't even think that, Matt Breida could do. And I think that we love Raheem Mostert, but he runs straight, and that's what he's good at. He's really fast, straight.
He's not he's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. One little cut from, the fact that the hole is literally this big between the guard and the tackle, and he's gone. Sermon can cut. Sermon is special. And if Sermon stays healthy with Trey Lance, like that's a tandem that's scary. To have a running back like Trey Sermon and a quarterback who can run the ball, pass the ball. And the fact that Trey Lance is, when you watch Trey Lance, the way the ball comes off his hand is just different. It's kind of like what we saw with Patrick Mahomes. When you watch Patrick Mahomes that first year, even though Alex Smith was the starter, you watched him in that final game of the season, and you saw Mahomes that final game of the season. You're like, okay, there's something to this Patrick Mahomes kid. They're going to have to probably play him next year. And when you see Trey Lance film and you watch the Trey Lance pro day, the film of it, after he took a year off, basically, there's something different about Trey Lance. And I was a Justin Fields guy first and foremost, but I think the reason Kyle took Trey is because he believes he's the smartest quarterback in the draft. And if that's what Kyle believes, then I'm all in on what Kyle says. Kyle's my guy. I don't care what he says. I'll trust Kyle with anything. I trust Kyle with my life. And that's crazy to say that I would trust the 49ers head coach with my life, but that's how I feel about him. He's that damn good. And I think that Trey Lance and Trey Sermon, the two Treys, plus Debo, plus Ayuk, plus, God, I hope Julio. God, just go get Julio Jones for me, please. But even just Debo and Ayuk, like this, and Kittle, like this team is so stacked. And if this quarterback can play above average football, I mean, heaven help the rest of the league, because Trey Sermon is a real running back. Kyle Shanahan hasn't had one of those. And Trey Lance is a real quarterback, and Kyle hasn't had one of those either.
I like that Trey Sermon answer, especially from the fantasy football angle. And just out today, Jeff Wilson with his meniscus surgery. So Trey Sermon will definitely be getting some solid playing time there.
He'll be starting for sure. I think he's the day one starter, just because Mostert hasn't stayed healthy. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it's Mostert, Sermon taking most of the carries.
Nice. Yeah. Do you have a favorite free agent addition?
Alex Mack, I think probably for me. I just think that the center, the problem the 49ers had last year with center was, I love Daniel Brunskill. I'm trying to get him on my show right now. Please come on, Daniel. I love him. I think he's really good. I think that he's really smart because he can play literally any position. He can play, guard. He can play tackle. He can play center. But having a guy who is a center every single day, especially with the Weston Richburg retiring, you have your line now. Your line is going to be Trent Williams, the best right tackle in the entire NFL. Laken Tomlinson, phenomenal. I don't think people realize how good Laken Tomlinson is and how smart that trade was that they'd made with the Lions all those years ago. Alex Mack, a great center. Aaron Banks is going to be a great guard. And I think Mike McGlinchey, who's now bulked up a little bit, is going to be a much better tackle. The offensive line is shored up, and that's perfect for your rookie quarterback where he's not running for his life and afraid to get killed every single play. And I think that a lot of people are like, well, they served the offensive lineup they made it better for Jimmy Garoppolo. No, they didn't. They made it better for Trey Lance, because when a rookie quarterback has a great offensive line, the things that happened are amazing. Like, look at Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield came in the league, and he was really good. But the second year he was awful because the offensive line sucked. Well, last year he went to the playoffs, and he has a defense similar to ours. And I think Trey Lance is better than Baker Mayfield. So, with a great offensive line, the offensive weapons the 49ers have, and the defense that they're going to have, I mean, the sky's really the limit for these guys. The Niners know what they're doing, and they've built a football team that could truly go out there and win a Super Bowl on a rookie contract. And I think that's the most exciting thing about being a 49er fan right now.
I only got one more question. G, you got anything else?
Yeah. Okay. When it comes to Trey Lance, when I say Trey Lance, what's the first thing you think of?
Dynamic athlete, all the talent in the world, a better deep ball than we've seen on any 49er quarterback since Steve Young. The fact that he's going to be able to understand pressure, unlike any quarterback we've had recently. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't understand pressure. He tends to just kind of let it hit him, stands there like an idiot in the pocket. Trey Lance won't do that. Everything about Trey Lance screams the fact this is Kyle's guy, and this is the guy that Kyle believes is the next Patrick Mahomes, the next Josh Allen, the next Russell Wilson. And I think that's the most exciting thing about Trey Lance, is that this is Kyle's guy. This is the guy that Kyle picked. And if this is who Kyle's never picked a guy, and then when you watch the film and you see Trey Lance, you see it. And I think that that's why we're going to get into preseason this year, and it's going to be undeniable, much like it was for the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson.
Exactly.
Russell Wilson came in.
Yeah.
Yep. Russell Wilson came in preseason. It was undeniable. I think it happened with Dak Prescott as well. Dak Prescott came in, and it was undeniable that he was the best quarterback on the Dallas Cowboys. And I love Tony Romo. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks who didn't win a Super Bowl. I think that people overlooked how good he was, but it was undeniable at that point in Tony Romo's career that Dak Prescott was the best. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the story that people need to continue watching as we get closer to the end of the preseason, is how much better Trey Lance is going to be than Jimmy Garoppolo in preseason.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I remember you had Eric Crocker. Shout out to Croc. You had Eric Crocker on the show. He said that he spoke to some quarterback coaches where what he said as far as progressions and accuracy. Very vague on that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So basically what we've heard from a lot of people, we've talked about Trey Lance since the pick, is that what Kyle believed is that Trey Lance is not only the smartest quarterback in the draft, but also has the ability to understand pressure. So meaning I like to think of it, and this is maybe a Nateism, but I like to think of it as a third eye, where, you're standing there reading, your defense, reading the offense, trying to find the open guy, right? Your eye in the back of your head is able to realize, okay, there's a man, I can hear the footsteps, I need to move. And that's one thing Trey does really well. The other thing that Trey does really well is he was able to play under center, which Justin Fields doesn't do that. I love Justin Fields, but Justin Fields' offense is very much like okay, let the wide receivers run the route. Whoever's open will throw. What Trey Lance ran was the most pro-ready offense probably in the NCAA last year, and the year before where he didn't play last year. And that's the biggest thing about Trey Lance, and why I think they inevitably chose Trey Lance, is because he played under center. And a lot of these guys coming out of college don't play under center. Mahomes never played under center. Mahomes played in an air raid offense. The reason Mahomes didn't start is because Mahomes had to learn how to play in an NFL offense, which takes a year. Trey Lance does not need a year. Trey Lance is ready to play right now. Trey Lance understands this offense, and from what I've heard, he has memorized this playbook more than the 49ers ever expected to at this stage in the process. And I wouldn't be surprised if by August of this year, Trey Lance understands the playbook just as well as Jimmy Garoppolo does, who's been there for 4 or 5 years now.
I have one more question, Duran. If you want to ask yours first.
It's probably Trey Lance related. Go ahead.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
so
go ahead. Mine's about coaching.
What's that?
Mine's about coaching. Go ahead.
Okay. So does Trey Lance open up Kyle Shanahan's playbook, or does it add another dynamic, if that makes sense?
I think it's a brand new playbook, personally. That's what I think. I think that Trey Lance, what Kyle's talked about a million times, is that with Trey Lance, he's basically, his mouth is basically watering at the things that he will be able to do with Trey Lance at quarterback. And when you think about that, I just think that you don't create one playbook for Jimmy and one playbook for Trey. The playbook this season is a Trey Lance playbook. And that's why I think that Trey Lance starts week 1 against the shitty Detroit Lions and the shitty Philadelphia Eagles. There's no reason that they should wait to play Trey Lance when you play 2 awful football teams to start the season. And that's why I think that he'll start, because I think that Kyle, unless he's awful in the preseason games, which, it still could happen, then Kyle's playbook is Trey Lance centric. And what that does for him is it allows him to use Deebo Samuel like the way he wants to use Deebo Samuel. It allows him to, where people are actually afraid of him throwing the ball, because not only can he throw the ball, but he can also run if he needs to. He can run for 10 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo can't run for 10 yards to get a first down on third and 10. It's impossible. I mean, he's done it, I guess, but it's not very probable, I guess. Not impossible. It's not probable. Yeah. And so Trey Lance is fast. He understands how to manipulate a pocket. He understands how to make off-schedule throws. He has a deep ball that's insane. People forget about the fact that, yes, there were some accuracy issues, but he was playing with guys who are literally flipping burgers and literally working at Macy's and literally working at Verizon right now. He wasn't playing with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. And there's a lot of throws that Trey Lance missed at North Dakota State that if Ayuk was his wide receiver, they're touchdowns. And this is a guy who threw 0 interceptions his whole year. And it's just, yeah. And yes, some of those passes were dropped. That's a thing that people need to realize as well. But he could have had even more touchdowns with better wide receivers. And it's just the optimistic side of me and the way that I am. I just think that the 49ers have their guy. And I think that they hopefully have a franchise quarterback that's going to be there for the next 15 years. That's the ideal thing. And I think that if Kyle drafted him, that's what they do have.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ray.
My next question is just about coaching, and I'm actually glad to see D'Amico Ryans get a shot at DC. We talked about it on our last Niners episode, and it wasn't official yet, but I mean, we've seen what he's done with those linebackers there. They're playing great, and I just want to know how you feel about him taking over for Saleh, who, his time was up there. He was one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, so good luck to him at the Jets. But how do you feel about D'Amico Ryans taking over?
I don't think there's going to be a drop-off. I think that people continue to talk about this drop-off that's going to happen, and I just don't see it happening. I think the reason that Saleh has had so much success the last 2 or 3 years has been the fact that the talent is there. yes, the defensive line wasn't as good, but you have the best linebacker in the NFL. And Richard Sherman's super smart, whether or not he's washed. He's tremendous in zone. He's bad at man. Yeah, sure. He's old. No corner is good in man when they get in their older age. It's just impossible because these kids are coming out faster and, stronger than they've ever been. But a lot of it was the personnel. The personnel the 49ers have on defense. And I think people forget about how good Chris Kasurik is at just having a D-line coach. I talked to Cliff Averill, who I used to work with in Seattle, and he said Chris Kasurik was one of his favorite coaches he ever had. And that's because Chris Kasurik is just a tremendous D-line coach. And that's why the 49ers, no matter who was personnel on that defensive line, they were able to, get the job done, despite the fact that a lot of them were pretty much scrubs. Like Kerry Hyder is a nobody. And yeah, he had a great year last year, but that was all Chris Kasurik. I don't think it's going to repeat in Seattle. No. And so a lot of it has been the personnel and the guys around Saleh. And I think Saleh is a tremendous guy. He's tremendous just at, his work ethic, the way that he, gets these guys excited. But I don't see a drop off. I think they're going to be just as good as they were in 2019 on defense in a lot of ways. I don't think it'll be exactly like 2019 because I think that defense was so good. It really ruined football games for other teams. And I think that's impossible to repeat because I think that the corners they have are, while good, the depth isn't quite there unless Ambry Thomas is the next, great cornerback, which very well could happen. But this pass rush should be just as good as it was in 2019. Nick Bosa's back, and Nick Bosa's an absolute freak. He's done this before. He's tore his knee. He's tore his meniscus before. It's not the first time he's done it, and he's come back and been fine. Kinlaw's going to take that next step. Kinlaw's an absolute freak. Eric Armstead, despite what Twitter thinks, is a phenomenal player. He probably got overpaid, but they didn't pay him because they couldn't pay Buckner. They paid him because they like him. And then the depth is there. Maurice Hurst. They have guys like Arden Key who can come in when they need them. DJ Jones. The list goes on and on. Zach Kerr. The list goes on and on of these guys who can come in and help make the team even better. And so, D'Amico Ryans is inheriting an absolute monster. And if he wasn't successful, I would be surprised because this team has been drafted so well on defense and the personnel is so damn good.
And you're assuming Richard Sherman's coming back, which I told you, why would he go anywhere else? I mean, the Niners seem like the place for him. I know it's not official yet, but I think, it should be coming down any minute now.
Two guys I think that are going to be on 49ers team before, and you can, I guess this is breaking news, whatever. I don't care. It's nothing official.
Yeah. We got breaking news here?
No, it's not breaking news. It's not official. It isn't official, but I think two guys that'll be on the 49ers roster before we get to the preseason will be Richard Sherman and Tony Jefferson II. Those are two guys that the 49ers will have on that roster.
Yeah, secondary help.
Yeah, I love Tony Jefferson. I hated him in Oklahoma because I'm a Texas fan, but I love Tony Jefferson.
Tony Jefferson is training with 49ers shorts on. There's a reason for that. And the things I've heard is that they're just kind of trying to figure out contracts, trying to make incentive. For older guys, they have to have incentive kind of contracts. They have to make sure these guys are getting chances to make some sort of money, despite the fact that they are older. But Richard Sherman will be on this football team. I'm pretty 92% sure that he'll be on this football team. Like Seattle could do something crazy and give him a bunch of money because they're idiots. Yeah, but I mean, I think he'll be on the 49ers, and I think having him there, whether or not he starts, which I think he'll start over Emmanuel Mosley, but I think just having him there with those guys and having him help Ambry Thomas and the defensive back from Oregon that I'm not going to say his name because I've butchered it every time I've said
Diamador Lenore.
Yeah, Diamador Lenore is huge for them. So, Sherman's coming back. I'm pretty sure.
I agree. Well, that's it for me, G.
Man, that's it for me. I love talking to a fellow 49er fan that's just as passionate as me, if not even more. I love it 100%. So I appreciate you for coming on, man. I know we communicate a lot on Twitter, whether it's about the 49ers, whether it's about the UFC.
263, baby.
Yeah. Can't wait for that one. Can't wait. That's a whole new episode.
I know. Yeah, totally.
We can talk about that, man. We can talk that for sure. Jermaine, anything else?
No, man. Thanks for joining us. You had great stories, and it's always nice hearing about some rival teams and things like that.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I
Alright.
love that you also came from Seattle and you came out
Oh
a
yeah,
49er fan. That's awesome.
unique
But if you
story.
can go ahead and let us know again where we can find you. We'll put all the links below, but where we can find you, and again, what work you're working on. Plug yourself, shout yourself out. Have at it, man. Floor is yours.
So I'm at 90849 on Twitter. Just follow me there. I post. I've actually been a little bit better with my hot takes lately. I've been kind of staying quiet just because I'm not trying to go crazy. I've been posting a lot about Julio Jones because I think the Niners should just go Julio Jones. It's really stupid. They shouldn't. They haven't. I do a podcast for Niners Nation. It goes up every Tuesday. It's called Niners Nation. It's part of their podcast lineup. They do different podcasts every day. So check out what Niners Nation is doing. Really good stuff. A lot of good guys over there. A lot of hardworking dudes. It's not easy to do a podcast every week. I think you don't realize it until you've done it for a whole year. How much work it takes just to plan something and say something different every week where you're not just repeating yourself. And so me and Leo Luna, 49ers Gold Mine, do that. I also do 2 times a week. I usually do a live show on 49ers Gold Mine with Leo Luna, Tapped In Sports, just kind of talking a little bit about the 49ers, different things going on with the team, stuff like that. Just kind of, interesting stories. Right now it's kind of a dead zone, so we're doing a little bit less shows, but I'm always trying to do more stuff. And then every Thursday we do a locker room or a Twitter space where we talk about the 49ers, give people a chance to talk. And that's a show where I like to listen to other people talk. I give them a chance to talk. If you want to come in, just request to speak. Don't be a troll. And I mean, I'm down to let anybody talk, say what they want about the football team, say what they think is going to happen. And that's what the point of that show is for me to hear other people and talk to other people, because I talk for a living at this point. So, I mean,
We got to get a Durant. We got to get
much.
Durant in on the locker room, man. I'd love to hear him talk like a rival team talk on the 49ers stream, man. That'd be great.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had a couple rival fans come into some of those before. It's
Some
pretty fun.
Seahawk guys.
No Seahawk guys. I keep those guys out there.
Durant, we
I
got to
lived
bring
there
you
for
on
too
one of those.
long.
I'll let you know when he does it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Thursdays, so I'll send you an invite.
Thursdays at 1 Pacific time. Yeah, every Thursday at 1.
I'm usually at work listening to it, but it's great to listen to. I mean, there's a lot of great content in that. So shout out to you and whoever joins in and says a lot of good content. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Twitter Spaces has made it a lot easier to talk to people. You need to be careful on there. You don't allow everyone to speak. I've learned that lesson because you get a lot of trolls. But Twitter Spaces is a cool thing and allows a lot of people to talk about anything. Like we did one with UFC the other day. So
all right, man. Well, I appreciate it again. If you can stick around a little bit after we sign out, that'd be great. Again, you can find us. Duran, go ahead. Let us know where they can find us.
At Why We're Fans on YouTube, on Twitter, anywhere you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, any of the other stuff. Go ahead, subscribe to us and listen. Hopefully we get one out once a week, and you can go back and listen to, I think we have 3 other episodes for Niners. So could hear other people's stories, how they became fans and their favorite moments.
Hell yeah, man. Trey Lance starting week 1. You heard it here.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening, guys. Bye.
All right. Later.